Let me introduce Dr. Graham Farquhar, who receives a Kyoto Prize, Basic Sciences, this year. Nice to meet you, Dr. Farquhar.
Nice to meet you, Mr. Sato.
Thank you very much for your time for this interview. We know you are very busy.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, we would like to sincerely congratulate you on receiving a Kyoto Prize, Basic Sciences, right now.
Thank you.
How do you feel that?
I feel like I'm king for a week.
King for a week.
Emperor for a week. No, it's an enormous pleasure, and it's recognition of an area of work, not just my own work, but work of many other people.
Yeah.
And but it's been such a pleasure meeting other people who are so good at what they do, particularly Dr. Inamori, the head of the foundation. So I've got a mixture of emotions when you ask me that question, but
Yeah.
but they're all good.
Good. They're all good. So, let me look back in your childhood. Would you please tell us some episodes that link to the current research? I know you have traveled a lot when you were young.
Yes. My father was getting his agricultural degree and then working in various places, and so he moved around a lot, including living in Ithaca, New York State, where Cornell University is. And I think by moving around a lot, it helps you, it removes the rough edges of personality a little bit and makes it easier to get on with people in the short term. So I think socially that's an advantage. I think it also, by traveling a lot, I think you realize that a lot of patterns of behavior are just one of many different possibilities. And so I think that's an education in itself, and that I think probably helps in various ways, including ways that lead to creative thinking that goes into the best kind of science. But also, I suppose, it makes you more confident about contacting other people, makes collaboration maybe a bit easier.
Yeah.
So I think travel and meeting other cultures and other people is valuable in many different ways.
Broaden your mind too.
Yeah, so travel was one thing. I had parents who were very supportive of my curiosity, and the fact that my father worked in agricultural extension, taking science to farmers, meant that there's automatically an interest in new technologies and new concepts. So that was a big influence. But I think my mother was very proud of her sons and probably help them be ambitious and work hard and so on. So I had all the good ingredients for my family.
Since your father was a scientist, that was natural for you to become a scientist too?
Yes, well, I think so. I admired him greatly, and I do remember thinking that I wanted to be a scientist like him, even though he was not so much an experimental scientist, although he had done some early work. As I mentioned, he was more taking the results of other people's science to farmers, but yes, it was a big influence.
I heard that your father gave you a book, the biology book, and taught you some advice.
Yes, he went on a trip to the United States and he heard about biophysics. In those days, nobody had heard the word biophysics. The word biochemistry was understood, the application of chemistry to biology, but nobody had really heard the word biophysics, and so he came back quite interested in this topic and gave me a book on biology. And as it happened, as a child I was asthmatic. I often had asthma in the springtime, in the spring when all the pollen was in the air.
Yeah.
And this year, when I was 14, I was confined to bed for about a week with asthma. And so I read the book in one long hit. And well, I enjoyed it. It's hard to say in retrospect how much was just novelty and how much was intrinsic enjoyment, but probably a mixture of both. I was interested and fascinated by the biological processes that were described, but also at that age, 14, people are always asking, what do you want to do when you grow up, or what's your favorite color, what's your favorite football team, and it was important to have an opinion, even if you didn't really have a very strong opinion, even if the opinion might change from one week to the next. But this enabled me to give an interesting answer when my aunts or uncles would ask me what I want to do. I could give them this answer: I want to be a biophysicist. And it was a good label.
I see.
But there must have been some substance to that thinking, because it did actually happen.
Yeah. So your father was quite influential too.
Yes.
Yes. Well, Dr. Farquhar, in fact, to be honest with you, this is my headache. It's too difficult for me to understand that your process-based models of a photosynthesis that you research. Would you kind enough to tell me that what it is?
We have the absorption of light, the conversion of light into energy, and then the use of that energy to capture CO2. In the model, we say that the overall process cannot go faster than the slowest one. And basically, we just put that into a mathematical form. Then, of course, we have to get what in chemistry is called the stoichiometry correct. Stoichiometry meaning one carbon dioxide, one water, and so on. So the relationship between the molecules in the reaction. And that can be a little bit tricky, but not so difficult. So in retrospect, it seems rather obvious. But at the time, it wasn't obvious. And all the people working on these different aspects of photosynthesis, they were quite confident that their component was the most important, that their component was determining how fast photosynthesis could go. But it won't surprise you that in reality, when you integrate the whole picture, it's, as I said, that nothing can go faster than the slowest component.
I see.
And you need to have them all working together to get the overall result. And so we just put that into mathematical form.
Through your research life, would you please tell us about some experience and episodes that you were kind of discouraged or embarrassed, trouble?
Well, in my PhD, I started working on stomata pores in leaves that allow carbon dioxide to enter a leaf, but also water leaves the leaf through the same holes. And sometimes the stomata oscillate. They open and then close somewhat with a period of about 30 or 40 minutes. And so my thesis was examining these properties, what affected the oscillations, when did they occur, what was the result, which species did it, and so on. And I put a big investment into this, and then a paper came out from Holland by a student who'd spent 5 years working on exactly the same thing, and he published this huge paper that described everything that I was working on. So I thought my PhD was finished. But as it turns out, it was probably a good thing, because it meant that I then had to concentrate on something more fundamental. So I often tell that to students and postdocs, that
You mean that was a good chance for you?
In retrospect, it was good because it forced me to do an even better job. So sometimes disasters like that,
It's not a real disaster.
not a real disaster because it forces you to leave the things that are fairly obvious. Other people will be doing them anyway. And it encourages you to take a fresh perspective. So that's one negative thing that happened. On the positive side, we worked up the theory. Do you know what isotopes are? Isotopes. This is so carbon, for example, has 6 protons and 6 neutrons and a mass of 12. But about 1% of carbon has an extra neutron. It's called carbon-13. It's got 7 neutrons and 6 protons. So it's a stable carbon. It's not like C14, which is unstable. It's a stable carbon, but it's heavier. And photosynthesis is slower with this C13. Anyway, we worked out the theory of what controls the C13 content of plant material, and we suggested that this ought to be useful in terms of selecting for water use efficiency, more growth for less water, or more growth for the same amount of water, or vice versa. And when we did I remember when we did the test, having this wonderful feeling to see what started off as just an idea and then becomes mathematics, and then becomes a theory, and then somebody, which is something totally in the mind, and then somebody else has gone away and planted seeds, grown plants, measured their growth. Somebody else has taken the material and burnt it into a mass spectrometer, and this has all been integrated. And you look at the two and you find that they're similar. This thing that's come from a brain, and that's so mysterious that you can make a prediction about something from some behaviour that you haven't actually seen, and that I find mysterious and wonderful.
Yeah. That's a wonderful message to the younger researcher.
Well, I hope that they have that experience. It's a great experience to have, yeah.
So I know that it's good to know that Dr. Farquhar is a dancer too, right?
Was.
So may I say it was like you were wearing 2 hats?
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, well, I was certainly training to be a scientist and training to be a dancer at the same time. And I recommend that to people if they can have. Dancing's ideal because it's not only physical. You've got the physical side of dance, which is wonderful, but there's also the music, the artistry, and so it stimulates the other side of the brain, and I think that they're mutually. It's mutually beneficial to do science and something like dance.
It's a good advice to young researchers. Stimulate your brain all the time from various aspects.
Yes, some people do it through sport, of course, and some people do it through the arts alone, and everybody's got their own.
In the future, would you try something new in order to stimulate yourself?
Yeah. I think I'm getting a bit lazier with time, but I'm not lazy about the science. I think I still tackle new scientific problems. I promised myself that when I go back to Canberra, I'm going to try and get involved in some primitive form of dancing again. But
Good. I hope to see you dancing someday.
Thank you, Mr. Sato.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farquhar.